Hear a good word today? I didn't hear you.
Yes, we are.
Oh, good. That's better. Want to make sure you're alive and that we're together, that we are interacting. I'm kind of like the interactive minister person. You know, I don't like it all to just be one-sided. I shared one time in a congregation that I was coming out of the closet, that I'm actually a Baptist preacher. And I am a Baptist unity preacher, I think, is kind of the way it is. And I just like that way of engaging and being lively in God. I asked you all to move forward this morning because we are an intimate group today. You know, and we want to be able to really experience each other's energy in this field of consciousness that is being created by each and every one of you who are here. Because your presence makes a difference, okay? Your presence makes a difference, whether it is your presence here in this space and what we are doing right now, whether it's your presence in the way in which you show up in your family, whether it's your presence in what you're doing in the work that you are currently engaged in, whether it's your presence in the way in which you step into the grocery store. Your presence has an impact on the field of consciousness. And so together this morning, we are creating a field of consciousness that is opening up and is being receptive to hear a particular teaching. A teaching which is one that will support you in your personal life, but also, which is my hidden agenda that won't be hidden because I'm going to tell you about it now, right? That goes along with my hidden agenda, which is to also prepare the space for the work you are going to be doing next week as a spiritual community. Because it is powerful, it is important work you are being gathered together to do with one another. Now, I know some of the people who are going to be here next weekend are not here with us today. What I am hoping, though, is that all of you who are here with us right now will be here next weekend. Just bring a cot. Bring snacks, okay? Because you're going to be here basically all weekend, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Clear your calendar because you are being invited to come this next weekend to be with Reverend Tony Boehm, to be with other members of your spiritual community, to be with the members of your board, to co-create your vision, mission, and core values. The creation of vision, mission, and core values also not only support the spiritual community, they are applicable in your personal life. Because when you have a vision for your life, you have a direction that you are moving toward, you have a way that it is being expressed, that is your mission. Your core values are what is important to you, what you hold most dear and close to your heart. And we live out of our core values. You see, I say who you are and what you do matters, do it consciously. If you look at your life, you will understand what you value. If you look at your life, you will be able to discern your mission. If you look at your life, you will intuit the vision, the guiding star. We are gathered today in this field of consciousness to be able to receive a word that will support you not only as individuals, but as a spiritual community. Demonstrated and spoken through one of the most important and powerful parables that Jesus, the master teacher, ever presented to his followers. It's a biggie. The parable of the sower. The reason why I say it is the most powerful of the parables he presented to his followers, those who listened to him, those who wanted to hear what he really had to say, it is the only parable he takes time to explain. It is the only parable that he unpacks, and within it, he lays out what I refer to as the spiral of awareness. He lays out 4 points along the path of awakening, along the path of hearing a word, of hearing a teaching, and how we receive it, what we do with it, and what we can expect to happen as a result of the way in which we receive it. So the 4 places he tells us about are the wayside, the rocky soil, the thorns, and the fertile soil. Each one of them represent a point on this spiral of awareness. Each one of them represent a point in consciousness that when we take in a word, a seed, he talks about a seed. A seed is a thought seed, because the way the scripture reads, one of the alternate readings, is that a sower was sowing the seeds of himself. He was sowing the seeds of himself. What are the seeds that we sow of ourselves? Our thoughts. These are our seed. The thoughts that we have, the way that we hear and receive a word, the way we take them in, and our thoughts about them are what create the condition of which we can expect them to manifest. Okay, so he talks about a condition known as the wayside. And this is where we hear a good word, perhaps like the crowds who came to hear Jesus speak that particular day. Have you ever gone to hear somebody speak, right? A spiritual teacher? We've gone and we've maybe heard Adi Ashante or Eckhart Tolle or different people. The crowds come. You know, you think of Marianne Williamson, you know, some of these other folks where literally you get like 1,000 people who come. And of that 1,000 people, there are many of them who are going to hear what that particular speaker has to say, in this case, what Jesus had to say, sowing the seeds of himself, hearing the thought word that was planted into that person, and it just gets scattered on the wayside, and it is picked up by the birds and carried off. Pick, 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 pick. I see those as those thoughts that we have within ourselves, that we hear an idea. It may be a perfectly wonderful, divine idea. We hear a word that we take in and we go, oh, well, that's really nice. But then the thoughts of lack, limitation, and doubt start to pick away at them. Right? Thoughts of lack, limitation, and doubt. I can't do that. Why would I want to go out? I can't possibly start a new business, not in this economy. Those are the thoughts that we hear within ourselves. Those are the birds that peck away at the seed that we are sowing of ourselves. And so when we let those thoughts rule over us, we let the birds peck them away, then the seed is carried off and the thought dissipates and it bears nothing. It bears absolutely nothing. So that's one point on the stage, the spiral of awareness. He talks to us about the rocky place where the soil is shallow. Okay, so these are the thoughts that come, the seeds that we may be planting within ourselves. And he says that it is withered away when the sun comes up because there is no depth of root. There is no depth of root in that soil. The soil is too shallow. So there's a springing up that happens, but there isn't enough there to be able to actually ground it. And so those are those times, those ways, and those places where those thoughts come in within us. We hear a good word. We've gone to see Eckhart Tolle, Marianne Williamson, Adi Ashante, any one of those other people that we go to see. We hear the word. The crowd is maybe a little bit closer in. You know, they've started to take it in. It sounded really good. Oh, that was wonderful. I love the idea of living in the now moment, right? The power of now, all those different kinds of things. We have a bliss sort of experience. We have a peak experience where we're like, ooh, this is really nice. It's one of the ways what I refer to as Christ consciousness. Have an experience of Christ consciousness. And it's all wonderful and it's great. And if you can think of Christ consciousness sort of like if somebody were blowing bubbles and the bubbles are coming out and they're beautiful and we're like, oh, Christ consciousness. And then the bubbles pop. That's the scorching. The bubbles pop. And because there's no depth of what it means to understand and be in Christ consciousness, they fall also off. And there's no fruit. There's nothing that is brought forward as a result of that condition. He tells us that there are some seed, some thought, a seed, those within us, a thought that gets planted in it is in the thorny places. And you know thorny places? The thorny places are where we hear a word, we maybe have an idea, it's starting to make some ground within us, it's starting to kind of take a place perhaps in our heart. We're thinking, yeah, this is cool. Oh yeah, affirmations and denials. I like affirmations and denials. Those are working for me. I'm going to go out and I'm going to tell people about this place, Unity, that I've found. And then people say things like, oh, you know that's a cult, don't you? Or instead of it being our thoughts inside, you go and you share with somebody that I'm getting ready to create a new business, and they're the one who say, how could you possibly do that in this economy? You must be crazy. They are the naysayers. The thorny places are the naysayers. Anybody know any naysayers? Okay? I've been a naysayer myself. Oh my God, I want to own it. Do some truth telling. I have been a naysayer myself. You know, I have a daughter who's had an entrepreneurial bent about her ever since she was a child, okay? And she's been trying to find different things, you know, and there's been a couple of the ideas that she's come up with where I've been like, I don't know about that, honey, you know, whether that's such a great idea. Naysayer, okay? So those are the thorny places. Those are also the places where we are unable to stand our ground when we see this wall of perhaps criticism coming our way, even though we know within ourselves that really this is what we're supposed to be doing. We've received an idea that we know is our calling. It's kind of like reestablishing this ministry going forward, what the ministry has been evolving into. I said part of my motive here was to set a condition that will allow you to really step into the vision, mission, and core values you're being called to participate in next week. So each one of these 3 places that we have been to so far possibly exist. There are those who come and they're here and they kind of hear what's going on and they, you know, just kind of come and go on Sunday and you don't see much of them and hear much of them. There are the ones that they hear that kind of idea. They're like, oh, well, I think that's a great idea that we're going to do vision, mission, and core values. I won't be there, though, because they have no depth of soil, right? They hear it. They think, oh, how nice is that? Vision, mission, core values is going to help steer the ministry. Everything's, oh, wow, we're all invited to come participate, but I'm too busy. I can't possibly set aside the time, okay? Those are our rocky soil people. And then we got the thorny ones who are like, oh, why are you even taking time to do that? We're happy with things the way they are. Or I don't agree with the decisions that are being made, but I'm not going to come participate. I know some of you have heard those things, right? So I want to seed the field here, because those are some of the conditions that will come about. There will be people that even if every single one of you come here next week, which I'm hoping you will, I'm not facilitating it, so you know it's not about me, it's about you as a community. I hope you will come here next week, that you come here and there will be choices that will be made. There will be discernment that's going to happen. You're going to be leaning into it, and the ones who didn't come are going to be like, well, why do we have to use that word? It's going to happen. Just prepare yourselves for it. Okay? Just want you to know. Expect it. Now, here's where we're going. I told you, this was the only parable that Jesus took the time to explain. He did not explain any of the other parables to anybody. He only explained this one. And let me tell you who he explained it to before we go to this last place. Before we go there, let me tell you who he explained it to. So, we ended with the first part where he gives the parable to the crowds. Those were verses chapter 13, 1 through 9. Afterwards, the disciples come to him. So now he's with the people who are closest to him. The disciples come to him, and he says to them, you have been given, to you it has been given to know the secret of the kingdom of heaven. To you it has been given to know the secret, to know the mystery of the kingdom of heaven. To you, 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 you. Okay? You. Because you're here. You moved up. You came closer. I said, come on in. Come a little closer. He says, to you, you have been given the secret, to know the secret. And so he unpacks the parable in the way that I have been unpacking it thus far by explaining each of these conditions and what one can expect to come out of those various conditions. The wayside, the rocky places, and the thorns. And then he goes to the good soil. And he says, what was sown on good soil, this is the one who hears the word and understands it, who hears the word and understands it, who indeed bears fruit and yields. So you have an opportunity here. within your own life and within the life of Unity of the West Side, to be that fertile soil. Well, how do you get to fertile soil? You'll get to fertile soil in part through our prayer and meditation. That's how we start to plant the root, right? There's a meditation that happens before the start of the regular service. It's one of the ways to start digging that root into deep soil, digging into good soil. We hear the teachings. James spent time this morning as the prayer chaplain talking about some foundational, basic unity, so that we ground ourselves in a way that we can have true understanding. Understanding that is not just a head understanding, an understanding that begins to really take a place in the heart. A place of love, a place of, wow, this is my life. The life that I am living, it is not a dress rehearsal. This is it. Okay, this is it. Your life right now, this is your life. This is your life. Remember that show, This Is Your Life? Old TV show, This Is Your Life, would run back through the events of your life that brought you to this moment. This is your life. When you look at your life, you will tell what it is that is important to you as you look at the landscape of what you do with your time. And it's the same thing that within this spiritual community, Unity of the West Side, to come and to love it enough to invest time and energy into understanding how you fit into it and how it fits into you, so that it is understood. And then this is what he tells us about the bearing of the fruit and the yield. He says it can be 100-fold, 60-fold, or 30-fold. So even within the one who understands, the one who is ready to bear fruit, the amount of time, energy, and effort that you put into your prayer and meditation life, the amount of time, energy, and effort that you put into truly understanding how denials and affirmations work in your life, the time and energy that you put into consciously deciding that you want to walk in a way of spiritual truth will determine, even within that, what you can expect to yield. It can be a 30% crop. It can be a 60% crop. It can be a 100% crop. And so the fertile soil is the soil of the heart. It is the place of love. For when we drive it deep into the heart of love, we then know the presence of the Christ that is within each and every one of you, and you live from that presence. And it is a marvelous way to live. It is a bountiful way to live, because it is a way of living that says, yes, there are certainly circumstances and situations we are not ignoring them. There are certainly situations and circumstances that are happening in the realm of appearance, absolutely. We get to stand in our divinity, we get to stand in the Christ of our own being and ask, how am I going to respond in love? In what way am I going to bring forth a loving way of being in the midst of whatever it is that is showing up in my life? And this is bearing and yielding the crop that is at 100%, is being able to continually practice being in that way. And so there's an invitation here to not only look at the divinity and the Christ within you as it applies to your own personal life and your relationships, but to also look at it as it applies to the life and the vibrancy of this community, Unity of the West Side. The place where you step through those doors every time that you come here, you breathe into this space, look out onto the patio and see how beautiful it is, the stained glass, all of it. You spend time in the hospitality area being with one another in communion through food and hospitality and sharing and being social with one another. And you come into this space and you go, wow, there is something that is important here. There is something here that I want to be a part of. There is something here that without my presence, it would not be the same. See, without your presence, it would not be the same. It is a mutual influence. And so I say that it is the most powerful parable because it is the one that he takes the time to explain, but it's also the one that tells us what we can expect based on where we are in this spiral of awareness. With the invitation to go into the fertile soil, to be the fertile soil, to allow it to plant within one's heart, and to stand in it and say, oh my gosh, just water me. Just water me with good words. Water me with the love that we share with one another. And let all that other stuff that's on the level of appearances, it's just fertilizer. Don't worry about it. It's just fertilizer. You know Duca? You know fertilizer? You know what fertilizer's made of? Okay? It's all just fertilizer that is enriching the soil of your being. Just take it as that. That's all it is. Let it enrich the soil of your being so that you yield in your life personally and in the life of this community at 100-fold. Okay, so let's breathe into that as we go into our time of meditation. Breathe into that as we go into our time of meditation. And I first want to seed the meditation with the affirmation for today. The limitless potentialities of Christ are quickened in me. I am established in self-mastery and success. The limitless potentialities of Christ are quickened in me. I am established in self-mastery and success. We breathe these words in. We let the word of the divine, the words of the teachings of the master teacher, Jesus the Christ, settle into our very being. Invite this word, the seed, the word of truth. Invite it now to land in the fertile soil of your heart. The limitless potentialities of the Christ are quickened in me. The seed thought of love, the seed thought of harmony, the seed thought of peace. Receive it in and allow it to be planted into the fertile soil of your heart. The energy of your heart that literally beats with life. It receives this seed thought, it receives this seed word and expands it. Expands it as it pulsates, as it beats with life. Life that is full, life that is rich, life that is abundant. Life which intuitively knows that these thoughts, these words are true. Let it settle into your very being. Let the life of your heart energy move it throughout your body, as though you are this plant, the root that is moving through you into the ground. It connects with each and every person who is here, intertwined in this field of consciousness, this place of oneness, each one touching the other, feeling the life that is moving through you as individuals and moving as you as a spiritual community. Breathing it in. Letting it land. Infusing it with love. And giving thanks. Giving thanks in advance of any expression of it in this physical realm. giving thanks in advance, for as it is in consciousness, as above, so below. As it is in your heart, so it will be. We know that the manifestation, the expression is coming. That first there is the planting in the fertile soil and the infusion of love, the infusion of life, which then allows that seed to grow. Grow in your life and grow in the life of this community. And we give thanks in advance. And so it is. Amen.
Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And leave us not in temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen.
And so if you'll grab hold of your bulletin, and on the inside cover where it says today's celebration service, about 3/4 of the way down, weekly intention. I want to give you a moment to get there. The weekly intention, and I would like to invite you to say it with me immediately, right now, in this moment, together. The limitless potentialities of Christ are quickened in me. I am established in self-mastery and success. And let's do that again. Take it deeper. The limitless potentialities of Christ are quickened in me. I am established in self-mastery and success. And so it is.